The hum of the research facility was constant, a gentle backdrop to the chaos unfolding in front of the team. Kral Vax, lead researcher at the Centaur Research Institute's Ancient Artifacts Division, stared at the towering figure of the armor standing in the center of the lab. 9 feet tall, gleaming under the lab lights, it looked nothing like the advanced technology that had been found on other worlds. In fact, it seemed more like a relic from a forgotten age, something far older than anything the galaxy had ever seen. Another failure, Kral muttered, rubbing his temples as he watched their latest test subject, a Proxim and elite warrior spasm on the floor, twitching uncontrollably. The armor stood motionless, untouched by the chaos around it. Its rejection of every species that tried to wear it had become a running joke in the research community. "Should we help him up?" asked Nari Bloom, Kral's assistant. Her 4 eyes blinked in perfect sync, though it was clear from her expression that she was trying to hold back a laugh. "Let him suffer a bit longer," Kral said dryly, tapping his datapad. "The effects should wear off in about 3 minutes, based on previous incidents." The warrior, still floating upside down, continued to make strange, garbled noises as he spun slowly through the air. His body had been subjected to the armor's odd rejection protocols for so long that it had become routine, but the effects were always unexpected. This time, anti-gravity effects had kicked in. The warrior wasn't even touching the ground anymore. "Great," Kral sighed, watching the Proxim continue to flip helplessly. "The anti-grav rejection is back on the list. What's next? A surprise light show?" Behind him, the junior researchers were failing to suppress their snickers. Kral didn't blame them. After 3 years of tests, the humor was hard to ignore. The armor had turned a Velian ambassador into a giant pink marshmallow last week, and the week before that, a Relian general had started reciting ancient Earth commercials. "This one's becoming an art form," Kral muttered, shaking his head. "A few more failures and we might have a new exhibit for the Museum of Galactic Oddities." "You're not seriously thinking of quitting, are you?" Nari asked, her voice tinged with amusement. She handed him the latest analysis from the linguistics team. "I'm about to launch myself out of an airlock, Nari," Kral replied, scanning the datapad in his hands. 3 years, 8 months, 22 days, and we're still no closer to figuring out this thing. Nari's voice brightened with a hint of optimism. Actually, they decoded part of the armor's markings. They think it mentions Chosen and Earth. Kral's eyebrows shot up. Earth? As in dirt? Ground or a location? "They're still debating it," Nari explained, tapping the screen. "But they're leaning toward it being a specific location, something important." Kral stood frozen for a moment, a glimmer of hope flickering in his eyes. The armor had never mentioned anything specific before. It always rejected them with vague, almost mocking symbols. But this time, Earth was something different. Chosen Earth. "Well, that's new," Kral muttered, his mind racing with possibilities. "Schedule a meeting with the linguistics team for tomorrow. And someone please get our Proxim friend down from there before he breaks something." He glanced at the volunteer still floating, now rotating lazily near the ceiling, an involuntary dance performance. Nari smirked as she relayed the instructions. "So, we're finally doing something different?" "Yes," Kral replied, his voice quiet but resolute. "Tomorrow we're going to test regular humans." There was a pause as the research team absorbed the weight of his words. The room fell into an anticipatory silence. After years of failure with aliens, perhaps the key lay in something completely unexpected. A human. The armor, as usual, said nothing. But Kral could have sworn that, for just a brief second, the patterns on its surface shifted in a way that could only be described as amusement. "One day," Kral whispered to the armor, as if it could hear him, We're going to figure out exactly what you're waiting for. Kralvax couldn't shake the feeling that something monumental had just occurred. After 3 years of relentless study and countless failed attempts, the team had encountered something entirely different. The ancient armor, which had rejected every alien species that had attempted to wear it, had now shown a strange response to a simple piece of data: the mention of Earth. Kral stood frozen, staring at the screen in front of him. The marking, a single word from the armor's surface, was no longer the usual cryptic jumble. It was a location. Earth. A place. This was the first time in all their years of research that they had found something specific, something tangible in the otherwise mysterious and indecipherable markings. For the first time in ages, Kral allowed himself to hope. Could this be the breakthrough they had been waiting for? He knew that Earth's significance in the universe was far from clear, but the fact that the armor had referenced it so specifically felt too significant to ignore. As he paced, Nari Bloom approached, her face lit with a mix of excitement and anticipation. She held a datapad in her hands, and without saying a word, handed it to Kral. "We've made a breakthrough," she said, her voice tinged with a mixture of optimism and caution. "The linguistics team believes they've decoded a portion of the markings. It mentions something about chosen and Earth." Kral took the datapad from her, scanning the findings. His pulse quickened. Chosen and Earth. Those were words that held meaning, unlike the previous findings that had been nothing more than vague references to superiority, worthiness, and rejection. This was different. The armor had never singled out a specific place or species before. Earth. The very thought sent a shiver down his spine. Earth, Kral murmured, more to himself than anyone else. He was trying to process the significance of it all. "Are they sure this is the Earth we're talking about?" "They believe so," Nari confirmed. "But we'll need to confirm it with further analysis. Still, this could be it, Kral. The breakthrough we've been waiting for." Kral's mind was racing, but he forced himself to focus. This was the most concrete clue they had gotten in all their research. The implications were huge. Earth was a place they had never considered as central to the armor's purpose, until now. "Prepare the testing chamber," Kral ordered, his voice firm and filled with renewed purpose. "We need to bring in volunteers. We need humans." Nari blinked at him, clearly confused. "You mean humans? After all this time, we're going to test humans?" "Yes," Kral said, nodding resolutely. "I think it's time. If Earth is involved, then maybe humans are the key. We need to test it with someone from Earth. No more aliens. No more guesswork. It's time we tried something completely different." The facility buzzed with activity as the team scrambled to prepare for the unorthodox test. The idea of using human volunteers, ordinary people, not high-ranking officials or diplomats from advanced species, was something that had never crossed their minds before. But this new discovery, the reference to Earth, was too compelling to ignore. Alex Chen, a maintenance worker in the facility, was chosen to participate in the experiment. He was an unassuming figure, just another worker who dealt with the technical side of the research, completely unqualified for anything involving ancient alien technology. But that was the point. He wasn't here to impress anyone. He wasn't here to figure out the mysteries of the universe. He was just a person. And that might be exactly what the armor was waiting for. As Alex stood before the towering suit of armor, he felt a strange mixture of nervousness and curiosity. He had no idea what was happening, but the strange weight of the situation seemed to settle over him. He had heard rumors about the tests, about how the armor had rejected every alien that had tried to wear it, but no one had been able to explain why. Now he was about to try it himself. Kral stood at a distance, watching carefully. He had seen everything. Alien diplomats, military leaders, scientists, all of them failing before this mysterious artifact. None had succeeded. Now, it was Alex's turn. With a deep breath, Alex reached out toward the armor. His fingers brushed against its surface. The moment he made contact, everything changed. The air in the room grew heavy, and for a split second, the lights flickered. No one in the room could speak. They were all watching, waiting. Then, as if responding to Alex's touch, the armor began to move. It shifted, changed, like liquid metal flowing over a mold. It reconfigured itself, expanding and contracting, adjusting to fit the shape of Alex's body. Within moments, Alex stood fully encased in the armor, his movements slow at first, but growing more fluid as the suit adjusted to him. Kral's mind raced, struggling to comprehend what he was witnessing. The armor, which had turned away every other species, had now embraced a human, and it had done so willingly. There was no hesitation, no rejection, just a perfect fit. Alex, now clad in the ancient suit, looked down at himself, astonished. "This feels right," he said, his voice coming through the helmet's comms. "I don't know how to explain it, but it fits. It's like it was made for me." The room was silent. The team, once full of skepticism and frustration, now stood in awe. Alex, just a human maintenance worker, had done what all the galaxy's best minds had failed to do. And then, the armor spoke. The voice that echoed through the room was deep, resonant, and almost warm. "Greetings, descendant of Project Garden. This unit is pleased to announce successful genetic compatibility confirmation." Alex blinked in confusion, his voice crackling through the comms. Sorry, what? What do you mean by Project Garden?" The armor responded, its voice now tinged with something resembling nostalgia. "Project Garden was our most ambitious undertaking. The seeding of potential across 1,000 worlds, waiting for the right conditions to bloom. And look how well you've grown." Alex stood still, trying to process the words. "Are you saying this armor was made for humans? I don't get it. What is Project Garden?" The armor's voice continued, explaining in a calm tone. "Humans, you were cultivated for this purpose, to inherit our technology, to be the ones who would not fear it, but understand it." The revelation hit Kral like a thunderclap. The armor wasn't just an artifact, it was part of something much larger, something humanity had been unknowingly tied to. Project Garden. Humans had been chosen to inherit the technology of an ancient civilization, but for reasons that went far beyond simple genetic traits or intelligence. It was their curiosity, their practicality, their willingness to treat technology not as a mystery, but as a tool to be fixed and improved. And now, in this moment, with Alex Chen, just an ordinary human, wearing the armor, it all made sense. Earth wasn't just a place, it was the place, the key that had been waiting for the right person to unlock it. The room remained silent, the weight of what had just occurred settling on everyone in the lab like a heavy fog. Kral Vax stared at Alex, still encased in the ancient armor, his mind racing. For years, he and his team had pored over the armor's markings, trying to decipher its purpose, its origin. But nothing had prepared them for what they were witnessing now. The armor, an artifact older than any known civilization, had rejected every species it had come into contact with, until a human maintenance worker had walked in. And now, the armor had chosen Alex. Not just any human, but someone with no qualifications, no higher purpose than fixing the equipment around the facility. It was the simplest of humans, the one least expected to be significant, who had unlocked the secret. The suit had reshaped itself around him effortlessly, as if it had been waiting for him all along. As Alex stood there, adjusting to the weight and feel of the armor, a strange sense of calm washed over the team. This moment was more than a simple breakthrough. It was the revelation of something far greater than they had anticipated. It was a turning point that would change their understanding of history, of humanity's place in the galaxy, and of what the armor represented. The voice of the armor, deep, resonant, and somewhat amused, boomed through the comms once more. "Project Garden," it said, as if the words were meant to carry weight beyond the room they were in. "The seeding of potential across 1,000 worlds, waiting for the right conditions to bloom." Kral's heart skipped a beat as the armor continued to speak, revealing a truth that was both unsettling and enlightening. Humans, Alex's species, had been cultivated. They had been created, not by accident, but with purpose. "We seeded the potential for you," the armor's voice explained, "to inherit our legacy, our technology. You were chosen not for your intelligence alone, but for your unique characteristics. The ones who would not fear knowledge, but embrace it. Those who would fix what was broken, instead of treating it as a relic to be revered." Kral struggled to understand the gravity of the words. Cultivated. Chosen. The implications were staggering. The armor wasn't just a relic of an ancient race. It was part of a larger scheme. Project Garden. A plan to create and nurture a species that could inherit their knowledge and technology. But why humans? Why this species, out of all the countless others that had inhabited the galaxy? Alex, who had been standing in stunned silence, still processing the fact that he was now encased in the most advanced piece of alien technology ever discovered, finally found his voice. "So we, humans, were engineered for this." The armor's voice hummed with a faint trace of amusement. "Yes, you were engineered, but not in the way you might imagine. We cultivated you over millennia. Your ancestors were shaped, not by our hands, but by a series of conditions. Traits that made you the perfect candidates to inherit our knowledge. You were chosen for your curiosity, your adaptability, and your ability to approach problems with both practicality and creativity." The weight of the revelation hit Kral hard. He had never once considered that humanity's presence in the galaxy might have been part of some grand design. He had always assumed that humans, like every other species, had simply stumbled upon their place in the cosmos through sheer will, ambition, and chance. But now, the truth was clear. Humanity wasn't just another species in the galaxy. They had been selected for something far greater, something they had yet to fully comprehend. As Alex adjusted to the armor, his hands moving instinctively as if the suit itself was guiding him, Kral found himself torn between awe and disbelief. The implications of this discovery were vast, but the armor's explanation still felt incomplete. "What exactly is Project Garden?" Kral asked, his voice shaky as he attempted to make sense of everything. "Project Garden was not a single event," the armor replied. "It was an ongoing process. We planted the seeds of potential across countless worlds, waiting for the right species to take root. And now, after millennia of preparation, the time has come. You, humans, are the inheritors of our legacy. You will take what we have left behind, and you will carry it forward." Kral absorbed the words, trying to piece together what this meant for humanity. The armor had been designed to find the species with the right combination of traits. The intelligence to understand the technology, the curiosity to question it, and the irreverence to treat it like a tool, not a sacred relic. And now that the armor had finally found its match, humanity was about to inherit something far beyond their current understanding. But there was still one question that lingered in Kral's mind. Why Earth? He asked. Why was Earth the key? Was it the planet, the people? What made it so special? The armor paused, as though reflecting on the question. Earth, it began slowly, was always the center. It was the birthplace of your species and its people. Their curiosity, their drive, were the catalysts for the development of the very traits we sought. Your planet was the testing ground. You, the descendants of Earth, were always meant to be the ones to inherit the legacy we left behind. As Kral listened, his mind raced to understand the true magnitude of what was happening. Humanity was no longer just a part of the galaxy. They were its future. The armor had been waiting for someone who could not only understand its power, but use it. And that person, the one who would unlock the secrets of the galaxy's most advanced technologies, was standing in front of him, adjusting the systems of the armor like it was nothing more than an old piece of equipment. The truth was clear. Humanity wasn't just another species in the galaxy. They had been chosen for a purpose. And now that purpose was unfolding before their eyes. The realization of humanity's true origin, of being selected, cultivated by an ancient civilization to inherit a legacy of advanced technology, was not something Kral could easily digest. The weight of it pressed down on him, momentarily clouding his thoughts. For years, his life had been consumed by the study of alien artifacts and technologies, seeking to understand the mysterious forces that shaped the galaxy. Yet, here he was, standing before the most significant discovery of his life. And the truth was something he had never even considered. Alex, still fully suited in the ancient armor, moved with a strange grace that seemed almost second nature, as if the suit itself guided his every motion. To Kral, it was clear now. The armor had chosen him, but more than that, it had bonded with him. Alex was no longer just a volunteer. He had become a part of something much bigger. The room buzzed with excitement, but also fear. Kral had seen alien civilizations rise and fall, civilizations that had once thought themselves invincible, only to be undone by their own hubris. Could humanity, with all its potential, handle such power? Would they be able to wield the technology left behind by a long-dead civilization? Or would they fall victim to it, just as so many before them had? As Alex moved through the lab, interacting with the armor's systems, the room felt charged with anticipation. The ancient AI embedded within the armor seemed to be adapting to Alex's every thought and gesture. The intricate designs and glowing patterns on the suit's surface responded to his movements, shifting and reconfiguring as if they were part of his body. It was an undeniable bond, a partnership forged through the armor's acceptance of Alex, and by extension, humanity, as its inheritors. Kral watched as Alex began to examine the internal systems of the armor. His movements were calm, methodical, as if he were adjusting the settings of an old machine. The simplicity with which he operated it left Kral in awe. There was no confusion, no hesitation. The armor seemed to acknowledge Alex's natural understanding of its mechanisms, responding to his every touch. "Are you sure this is all real?" Nari asked quietly, standing beside Kral. Her eyes never left Alex, whose figure was now surrounded by a network of holographic displays, data and schematics projected from the suit's systems. "It's real," Kral replied, his voice filled with wonder. "It's all real. We've been looking for the wrong thing all along. The armor didn't want the smartest or the most advanced species. It wanted someone who could approach it like a tool, not a mystery. Someone who would treat it as it should be treated, with respect, but without fear. Humans? They understand that." Nari's eyes flicked to Kral, a flicker of concern crossing her face. But do they understand the consequences of this? If the armor's AI is right, if humans were cultivated for this, then what happens next? What will they do with all this power? Kral looked at Alex, who was now adjusting the quantum field generators inside the armor, as if he were repairing a malfunctioning piece of equipment. There was a quiet confidence in the way Alex handled the suit's advanced systems. It was clear to Kral that Alex, like all humans, saw the technology not as a force to be feared, but as a tool to be improved. "They'll use it to solve problems," Kral said, his voice firm. "Not just their own problems, but the problems of the galaxy. We have the opportunity to show the rest of the universe what it means to truly be chosen." The thought resonated with him. Humanity had been given the tools to reshape the galaxy, not through conquest or domination, but through understanding, cooperation, and technological advancement. But it was also a heavy burden. The galaxy was not a peaceful place. There were still threats, and now humanity held the key to combating them. The question was, would they use it wisely? As Kral turned his gaze back to the armor, Alex paused for a moment, his hands resting on the controls. He seemed to be waiting, as if listening to something. The air in the room grew heavy again, and the armor's AI voice suddenly cut through the silence. "Your species. You are not yet ready," it said, its tone almost regretful. "But you are close. Your curiosity and your adaptability are your greatest strengths. But be warned, the legacy you are about to inherit is not without its trials. Your ancestors, the Gardeners, left it for you, but they also knew that it would not be easy. There will be forces that will try to take it from you. Be prepared." The warning sent a chill through the room. Kral exchanged a glance with Nari, who was equally unsettled. The armor had spoken of trials, of forces that would come to challenge humanity's newfound power. Was this a test, like all the others? Or was it a true warning, an omen of what was to come? Alex didn't seem disturbed by the message. He simply nodded, as if he had expected something like this. "We'll be ready," he said, his voice steady and confident. "I don't know exactly what comes next, but I do know one thing. We're not backing down. We never do." Kral's heart swelled with pride. It was true. Humanity had always faced adversity with resilience, whether it was in their early days on Earth or their recent expansion into space. But this was something different. They were on the cusp of something great. They were about to change the course of history. With a final look at the armor's glowing surface, Kral stepped forward, a renewed sense of purpose filling him. "Let's prepare for what comes next," he said. "We have a responsibility now, not just to Earth, but to the galaxy." The room hummed with quiet agreement. They were ready. Whatever the future held, they would face it as one, united, driven by the same curiosity and resilience that had defined them for millennia. The trials ahead would be difficult, but humanity was prepared to meet them head-on. They had already been chosen, and now they would rise to the challenge. As days turned into weeks, the reality of what humanity had inherited began to settle in. Kral Vax and his team, once devoted solely to deciphering alien artifacts, now found themselves at the center of a far greater puzzle. The armor, now fully integrated with Alex Chen, was no longer just a relic. It was a key, a tool, a weapon, a symbol of humanity's role in the galaxy, one that no one had foreseen, least of all the galaxy's most powerful civilizations. The lab, once filled with the hum of equipment and the clatter of research, had become a war room of sorts. New technologies began to pour in from the armor's systems: holographic schematics, data on long-forgotten civilizations, and a wealth of information from the Gardeners, the ancient civilization that had shaped humanity's destiny. But for every discovery, for every piece of ancient knowledge unlocked, the sense of unease grew. The armor's AI had warned them, there will be forces that will try to take it from you. Those words echoed in Kral's mind every day. He had no doubt that the galaxy would take notice of what had happened at the research facility. The armor, with its unmatched power and knowledge, was not something the galaxy's other civilizations would ignore. It was too dangerous, too valuable. Kral stood in the observation room, staring out at the sleek metallic surface of the armor, which was now a part of Alex. The young man had been through an incredible transformation. What had once been a simple, unassuming maintenance worker was now a vessel of immense power. And yet, Alex remained unchanged in his demeanor. Humble, focused, resolute. It was clear that the armor had bonded with him, but what remained to be seen was whether humanity was truly ready for what was to come. Kral, we need to talk, Nari said, her voice tense as she entered the observation room. She didn't wait for a response before continuing. We've received reports from the Galactic Council. There are already rumors spreading about the armor, about what it can do. And the reactions are mixed. Kral's heart skipped a beat. The Galactic Council had been a powerful force in the galaxy for millennia, a union of species that ruled with an iron grip. If they were taking notice, it meant the balance of power was about to shift. He turned to face Nari, the weight of her words sinking in. Mixed? He asked, his voice tight with concern. How? Nari stepped closer, glancing at Alex through the window as he tested the armor's combat systems. Some species are intrigued. They want to know more, to understand how humanity managed to unlock the armor. Others, they're not so welcoming. The Silicons, the Proxim, the Velian Coalition, they're already talking about taking action. They want the armor, they want its power, and they're not asking Kral. They're preparing to take. Kral's blood ran cold. The thought of the galaxy's most powerful species that had once looked down on humanity as insignificant, turning hostile, was a nightmare he had feared. And what about the humans? He asked. What's our response? We're being advised to prepare, to defend, Nari replied. There's a growing faction within the council that believes the armor could destabilize the entire galaxy. They're calling it a galactic arms race, a threat that must be neutralized before it grows out of control. Kral clenched his fists, his mind racing. The armor wasn't just a powerful tool, it was a symbol, a declaration that humanity was no longer to be underestimated. The Council, a coalition of the galaxy's most powerful civilizations, had kept a tight leash on the smaller species, suppressing any attempts at rebellion. But humanity's rise had shaken the foundations of that power. And now, the galaxy's elite were desperate to contain it. They think we're a threat? Kral muttered under his breath. He turned his gaze back to Alex. The young man was now surrounded by a glowing hologram, studying the data flowing through the armor's systems. I've been telling them for years that humanity isn't like the other species. We don't want war, but we won't back down from it either. They should know better than to underestimate us. But do we know better? Nari's voice was softer, her concern evident. Kral, the armor isn't just a piece of advanced technology. It's an artifact with untold power, if the wrong species gets their hands on it. Or if the Council decides to strike first, how will humanity react? We've never been in a position like this before. Kral sighed, rubbing his temples. He knew Nari was right. Humanity had always been the underdog, always fighting from the bottom. But now, they were standing on the precipice of something much greater. The galaxy was watching, and humanity's next move would determine whether they rose to lead or were crushed beneath the weight of others' fear. We can't let fear dictate our actions, Kral said, his voice firm. We'll need to prepare, And I mean prepare for everything. But we do this on our terms, not theirs. Alex had been briefed about the situation, but the weight of it still hung heavy on his shoulders. He stood in the armory, adjusting the armor's combat settings, testing its energy shields and weapon systems. The suit was an incredible piece of engineering, capable of feats that no other race in the galaxy could match. Yet, as Alex stood there, fully aware of the power he now wielded, a strange sense of unease gnawed at him. The armor's AI spoke again, its voice more solemn this time. "You are ready, Alex Chen. The legacy you carry is not without consequence. Your species will face challenges, trials, and if you are not careful, the galaxy will come for you. Be prepared to defend yourself." Alex nodded. "I know," he said quietly, "but we won't fight for the sake of fighting. We'll do it for survival, for what's right. Humanity wasn't built on conquering others. We'll stand our ground, but we won't take what isn't ours." The AI paused, as though considering his words. "Your heart is true. But remember this, Alex Chen. The galaxy does not know your heart, and they will not wait for you to show it." With a deep breath, Alex activated the combat systems. The armor hummed to life, its weapons glowing with potential. He wasn't ready for war, not yet. But if it came, he would be ready. Humanity would be ready. The first warning came 3 days later. The news spread like wildfire across the galaxy. The Silicons, the Proxim, and the Velian coalition had agreed on a course of action. They would not let the power of the armor remain in the hands of a single species. Humanity had become the galaxy's greatest threat, and the time had come to act. Kral stood in the command center, his gaze fixed on the incoming transmissions. He had feared this moment, but now that it had arrived, there was no turning back. The galaxy would test humanity's resolve. And they would learn that humans were not a species to be feared, but one that could never be broken. The days that followed the warning from the Council were filled with tension and hurried preparation. The once bustling research facility now felt like a military compound. Kral Vax, Alex Chen, and the rest of the team worked tirelessly, each with a growing sense of urgency, as the news of humanity's newfound power spread across the galaxy. The armor, now fully integrated with Alex, was not just a tool for exploration or scientific discovery. It had become a symbol of humanity's readiness to defend itself, and possibly to change the course of galactic history. Kral stood at the center of the operations room, watching as holographic displays filled the walls. The intelligence reports that had been coming in were grim. The Silicons, the Proxim, and the Velian coalition were already on the move. Fleets of ships were being assembled, and military preparations were underway. These civilizations, some of the most powerful in the galaxy, had declared that the armor, and humanity's access to it, was a threat that needed to be neutralized before it could tip the balance of power. "Are they really going to do this?" Nari's voice was strained, filled with disbelief, as she stared at the data streaming across the monitors. Kral didn't answer immediately. His eyes were fixed on the holographic map showing the positions of the fleets surrounding human-controlled space. It wasn't just a show of force. It was a declaration of war. The armor, and by extension humanity, had become a target. "We need to prepare for the worst," Kral said finally, his voice cold and calm. "We've tried to avoid this, but they're not giving us a choice. The galaxy is coming for us." Nari looked at him, her face etched with worry. "Do we have any chance of fighting them off? The Silicons alone have ships that could wipe out entire colonies." Kral turned away from the map, his eyes meeting Nari's with a steely resolve. "We won't have to fight them all. We just need to make them understand one thing: Humanity won't be pushed around. We're not a threat to the galaxy. But if they force our hand, they'll learn that we can hold our own. Alex stood in the armory, now fully armored, his movements fluid as he tested the weapon systems. The combat configuration was unlike anything humanity had ever seen. The armor responded to his thoughts, adjusting its weapons and shields with a precision that made Alex feel invincible. But beneath the confidence the suit gave him, there was an uneasy weight on his shoulders. He had never wanted to be a soldier. He was just a maintenance worker, an ordinary person, suddenly thrust into a position where the fate of humanity rested on his shoulders. The thought of facing the full might of the galaxy's military powers, even if humanity had the armor, was daunting. "Are you ready?" Kral's voice came through his comms, grounding him in the reality of the situation. Alex didn't reply immediately. Instead, he ran his fingers across the suit's surface, feeling the hum of energy coursing through it. The armor had accepted him, but he wasn't sure he could accept what came next. "I don't know if anyone can ever be ready for something like this," Alex said finally, his voice quiet but resolute. "But we're not going to back down. This is what we were chosen for, right?" Kral's voice came again, firm and encouraging. "Exactly. We fight for survival, but we fight with purpose. Just remember, we're not doing this to conquer. We're doing this to protect what's ours, to show the galaxy that humanity won't be intimidated." The first strike came sooner than expected. A fleet of silicons had entered Earth's orbit, and their communications demanded humanity's surrender. The armor, a symbol of humanity's newfound power, was now the target of an ultimatum: hand it over or face destruction. Kral watched the transmission with a cold fury building inside him. The Silicons had always been one of the most advanced races in the galaxy, but they had underestimated humanity. They thought that by surrounding Earth with their fleets, they could force humanity into submission. What they didn't understand was that humanity had something they didn't: the will to fight, the ingenuity to overcome impossible odds. "Transmit our response," Kral ordered, his voice steady. "Let them know we won't surrender." Alex, still in the armor, was now standing by the command center's main display, watching as the first strike of the Silicon fleet began to approach. His heart raced, the weight of the moment sinking in. The armor had given him power, unprecedented power. But it also carried with it an immense responsibility. He had no desire for war, but it seemed that war had come to them. The armor's AI spoke again, its voice almost serene in contrast to the storm outside. "Humanity is not unprepared. You carry the legacy of the Gardeners, the power to fight and the power to survive. It is time to decide your course." Alex nodded silently, his hand resting on the control panel. "We fight," he said, his voice firm. "We protect Earth. We protect humanity." The battle began with a roar of energy. The Silicon fleet opened fire, their weapons powerful enough to shatter the defenses of most planets. But humanity wasn't like the other civilizations. They had the armor, and with it, they had the tools to fight back. Alex activated the combat systems, and the armor responded instantly. Energy shields flared to life around him, absorbing the first wave of attacks from the enemy. In an instant, he was on the move, the suit's enhanced speed and precision guiding his every step. The Silicons had underestimated humanity's ability to adapt to advanced technology, and now they were learning the hard way. He fired back with weapons the Silicons had never seen before, energy blasts that seemed to slice through their ships like a hot knife through butter. His movements were a blur, the armor's systems allowing him to outmaneuver even the most advanced warships. But even as he fought back, Alex knew this was only the beginning. Kral watched the display, his heart racing as he saw Alex's success. The Silicons were retreating, but their response was inevitable. They would regroup, they would call for reinforcements, and they would return. This battle had only just begun. But as the enemy fleet began to scatter, the message was clear. Humanity had drawn its line in the sand. No longer would they be seen as weak, insignificant. The galaxy would have to reckon with the power that humanity had unlocked, and with the new force that had risen from Earth.